Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. Folks, we got a great show for you today. First and foremost, it's Thursday, so we want to be check in with Mr. Politics himself, Hassan Giordano, to give us his analysis on some of the big political stories of the day. Also, let's check in with Laura Albast, who is an organizer and writer and digital coordinator for Palestine Studies, as she gives us an update about what's happening in Iran as they 40 days after the killing of the 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, and giving us an update about the Israeli elections that's happening in a week and the impact that it will make on the struggle for the Palestinian people. We'll have that conversation. Also, can we talk about the male ego and how it's killing Black women? Now, this is based on the story of Asia Womack, the 21-year-old who was killed by 31-year-old Cameron Hogg, and how it's important for us to have a conversation about the male ego. We also check in with Culture Crew member Chinedu Wakofor to get his take on that, and so much more. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the show. Happy Thursday, and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversations today. Big shout out to my online culture crew that's checking in. If you're on YouTube and you're watching us being streamed live right now, big shout out to you. Thank you for joining us. If you're on Facebook, thank you for joining us. And if you are checking us out, if you haven't already, make sure you go to our website at blackstarnetwork.com, download the site for free, and of course, click on that button to where you can help us financially to continue to grow the network. We're taking some big steps, big strides, making some big gains, folks, and we want you to be a part of the movement. So make sure you support us here at blackstarnetwork.com. And also, if you haven't had a chance, join me in the conversation. You can hit me up on my social media at The Real Farajii on Instagram, Farajii on Twitter, and Farajii Muhammad on Facebook. As we have our conversations on air, we would love to connect with you online. So you can definitely find me there. All right, folks, let's jump right in because we are only a few weeks away. This is a very, very crazy time. Of course, the big national midterm election is coming up in just a couple of weeks. And I love checking in with my brother, Hassan, Mr. Politics Giordano, to get his take on all that is happening around this election and everything else around the world of politics. So let's welcome him to the airwaves. Hassan, my man Hassan, representing the Ravens also always. How are you, sir?
Got you, baby. Got the throwback T-Sizzle jersey on. We're going to represent tonight. We need that.
Oh, yeah.
Step up.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Tom is a little down right now. Yeah,
Patrick Queen's my guy on defense right now, but I can't see myself wearing a jersey with the word Queen on the back. So I'm going to just go with Suggs, right? Keep it moving, right? But tonight, we're going to make it happen. We're going to make it happen.
We're going to make it happen. All right, Hassan, let's first talk about something that I think a lot of people are really, really concerned about. And I didn't know how deeply concerning this is until I actually read a piece around the Department of Justice that it's a federal concern about the security of the polls. There are a number of places around the country that are expressing that they are fearing, and I'm saying election workers are fearing that there's some level of violence may happen as a result of people's anger. Take a look at this, folks. Our security here is a joke. Election workers lament lack of federal spending on security ahead of crucial midterms. One of the big things that came out from this piece, Hassan, is the fact that we're just not seeing the type of support that we should be seeing. And the crazy part is, I don't even know when there was of course, probably during the period of civil rights, but I'm saying within the last 20 to 30 years, has there been such a heightened sense of security that's needed for the polls?
No, absolutely not. And you're correct in your assessment that we haven't seen this type of hysteria around polling and elections since pre-Jim Crow days. All right. And this all started and it all ends with one man, and that's Donald J. Trump. Period. Bottom line, there would not be this level of hysteria and this level of action without Donald Trump prompting it. All right. Look, if you look at election after election, we always have issues with elections locally, federally, statewide. There are always little hiccups, right? It's not a perfect system by any means. But in terms of fraud, voter fraud, that is very few and far between. I would hasten to say that there's nobody watching the show, including Donald Trump, who can give me off the top of their head or even examples, real examples, not something you made up in your mind,
right,
of a dozen frauds in one particular locality over a 20-year period of time. It's unheard of. You do have some people who at time here and there do that, but this level that we've seen, because he wants to throw a temper tantrum about losing and trying to declare that he did not lose the last election, has gotten his supporters and his followers so riled up that you even see now the threats being made. Look, Georgia had an election worker who was threatened to be hanged if the results of the upcoming election did not turn out the way they wanted them to turn out, right? From this worker, this person who called the election. So you do have that level of hysteria. And then you also have what I think could be an even further threat to democracy is when I believe that we'll start to see what we saw happen in Washington, D.C., that you'll see that on a local level, either at the polling locations or even possibly at the election warehouses. Because what most people don't understand is while you have a polling location across the, your jurisdiction, after every election, all that data is sent to a warehouse, the election warehouse. And that's usually where the Board of Elections does their recounts, right, where people can come and watch the recount and watch things being taken. And if you overthrow an election warehouse, I'm more worried and concerned about possibly, because they're going to go and the first thing they're going to do is go for the ballot boxes, right? They're going to go for the polling machines, not realizing, people don't get this, that a lot of the polling machines, then obviously vary state to state, are done, even though they're done on a physical paper ballot, they're fed through a machine, and then that stuff is uploaded, and then it's not only that, it's backed up on hard drives. So they may, overthrow an election warehouse hypothetically, and they're going to go for the machines, not realizing that all that data is already backed up. So it's not like you're going to stop anything, but I think that it's going to lead to further threats to democracy. But I'm more concerned, Farajii, about the southern states that have all but eliminated voter protection laws. That's my main concern, because what you're going to see is minorities in Georgia and Texas and Florida and these southern states who are going to have to go, above and beyond to try to prove that they've been a voter for God knows how long and actually have their ballots cast. That's what I'm more concerned about, because now we have election officials with the erosion of the Voting Rights Act from back in 2014 to even recently in the past few years. We've seen that the DOJ cannot step in and prevent these states from doing what they've been doing. And so you're going to start to see long lines in largely minority areas across this country that are preventing people from casting their ballot, purposely trying to frustrate them and from casting their ballot, because of course they know that in most urban areas it's a high demographic of Democratic voters. So that's where we're going to start to see some of these issues play out, and that's my major concern prior to this November 8th general election.
Now, a couple of things, and McCole brought it up. Our online culture crew member, McCole, checked in and said, look, did you hear about what's going on in Arizona? As people are dropping off their ballots, there are armed people sitting nearby, quote unquote, election watchers. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I actually remember when Trump, during the 2020 election, you know what I mean? There was that talk about election watchers. Trump had, there were some people who had designated themselves to be election police or poll police or something along that line. Okay. And so is that happening? Is that happening? Are you reading or are you hearing about those things happening right now? Because I know a lot of states are already in their early voting process, early voting period. Oh, you got you on mute, bro. Hold on, you got you on mute. Oh, are you not on mute? We're going to try to get your sound up very quickly. And folks, we want you to join us in this conversation. Post your thoughts as we have this discussion about the protection of the poll workers, the election workers, and protection of the physical infrastructure. Are you concerned about this? Is this a concern? Post your comments in on our streaming as we're streaming live on YouTube, as we're streaming live on Facebook. Are you concerned about if the polls are going to be safe? If you have already gone to the polls to do some early voting, what did you see? If you plan to wait until November the 8th, are you concerned that there may be some issues of security at the polls? Let me know your thoughts on this, folks, as we continue to get my brother Hassan back into the fold. Better than Avi, you checked in and says, does getting mad at political issues mean I'm getting older? Does getting mad at political issues mean you're getting older? You know what, better than Avi? I'm the same way, actually. I started to care more about what people are doing, what our local political leaders are doing. I don't think it's about just getting older. I think you're just becoming more informed and you want to know what's happening. So I think it's a good thing. When you're younger, you sort of kind of, put your hand in see what's going on with politics. But yes, as you get older, you want to know more about the election. We got Hassan back. Hassan, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
All right, cool. So talk to us about these armed election watchers. What's your take on that, bro?
So first, Avi, you are getting old, as is Farajii. Farajii got gray hairs. I remember he was a teenager back in the day. But and that's a good thing, right? We want to get older. Right. We want to be here. We want to care about these type of things.
Right.
The problem is these people who are armed at the polls, they care a little too much, but they don't care about democracy. They care about what they want. That's the problem that we have in this country today. It's all about what I want now, right? It doesn't matter about what my neighbor wants, what my family. It's about me, 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 me. And that's what you see now. These people have taken it upon themselves to take America back, like Donald Trump is always. That's what MAGA really stands for. Making America Great Again is talking about what we talked about at the beginning of this program, pre-Jim Crow, right? That's what we saw. That's what our ancestors saw. We didn't see it. Our ancestors saw when they tried to go cast their ballots back in the day and had to count jelly beans in order, a big jar of jelly beans. You had to count. You had to guess how many was in it in order to be a registered voter. That's what they're trying to implement today to keep us from casting our ballots. And we cannot allow them to win that, right? They're trust and believe. They're not going to fire us. Well, at least, God forbid, I hope not. Fire a shot for you to do that, but it's intimidation. They've used tactics over and over again. As a matter of fact, 2 of them just got indicted. I think it was Ohio that they just got convicted because they sent out robocalls in urban areas, right, in minority communities, kind of dissuading them from coming to the polls in fear tactics. And so they're going to do this. We're going to see that, and I think you're going to see it largely in states like the caller was talking about, Arizona. Look, this election and the ultimate balance of power in Congress is real simple. Boils really down to 7 states: Arizona, Georgia, Colorado, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Those are the quote unquote battleground states. That's going to decide the control of the Senate as well as the House in some parts, right?
Yeah.
And so you're going to see a more heightened sense of security, hopefully, as well as these so-called Trump type of poll workers, poll watchers, so to speak, at these drop boxes. And those drop boxes really came into play, Farajii, during COVID, post-COVID, because we didn't really have the mail-in ballot the way we had it prior to COVID, right? Some states had mail-in, but for the large part, you didn't have that across many of the states in the country. COVID allowed that because it was a more convenient way for people to cast their ballot without having to go to an early voting site and interact with people, right? Or election day site. And so The problem we may have with that also is, while they are locked and are only supposed to be checked periodically with election workers who are now being trailed by armed security, either police officers or security themselves, so nobody can rob them of the ballots, I can start to see that people are going to start to break into these boxes. I can see those Trumpists being able to break into these boxes to take out these ballots in urban areas. They're not going to do it in areas that they think are going to vote for their candidate. And so we have to be cognizant of that and take the necessary steps and put the required money behind the DOJ to be able to protect the ballot and the vote of everybody across this country.
Hey, look, bro, as we talk about this, there's some real and take a look at this. Ballot box watchers in Arizona face lawsuits by voting rights advocates. I mean, you might see a bunch of these folks, especially like as you said, Hassan, in southern parts of the state. I mean, of the country. This is really, really scary and unpredictable and uncertain, because people are so, passionate about, and you're saying it's not necessarily about democracy. It's just about power and getting what you want. And if you can't get what you want, therefore I'm going to resort to some level of violence. So it's absolutely scary that folks go this far. But I hope that the country, whether it's police departments, state police departments, or whatever, even federal police, that they put the money. I know they had some money allocated for poll workers and poll protection, and some of that money was taken back from the government. So this is really interesting. This leads us to the next part about Donald Trump, where people are saying, and there's a report out right now, people are saying that President Trump is plotting to steal the midterm and the presidential election. So he got, take a look at this, folks. This is from Vanity Fair. Take a look at this. He's already plotting. This is what the report says. According to reporters, check this out, y'all. According to the reporters, Asavin Subangin and Adam Rounsley, during these meetings and conference calls, pro-Trump groups, attorneys, Republican Party activists, and MAGA diehards often discuss the type of scorched earth legal tactics they can deploy, and have gamed out ways to aggressively challenge election outcomes they're unhappy with, i.e. ones in which Republicans don't win. One route they reportedly plan to take on election night, if a clear winner is yet to be announced, is the one Trump deployed in the early hours of November 4th, 2020, in which he declared, "This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to this country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election." What?
They didn't even win 2016. Let's be honest, right? The popular vote went to Hillary Clinton. Right. Yeah, you won the electoral vote, right? And granted, that's fine. You didn't win this election. The problem with this is they're taking it way too far. And it bothers me as someone who really respects the institution of government, because look, I had a candidate, former Mayor Sheila Dixon here in the city of Baltimore, who outright won the mayoral election in 2016.
Right.
And it was said that she won, and they robbed her of it, right? That they found out the other candidate illegally paid for people to come in from out of town, from Philly, where she was from. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, it goes on. But you don't see her running around saying, "Oh, God," and rising up, and we gotta, it's okay. You know what? They got me on that one. I think I would have took it a little bit further than she did. Maybe made a class action or some type of court proceeding and challenging it. But nonetheless, when you are someone who is supposed to be of the people and for the people, you don't allow basically what they're doing is that Trump's doing is allowing for hysteria. It's like he knows that he benefits from this, and he doesn't care what the ramifications are. And what he's not understanding is, and maybe he is, because I don't think he's a dummy by any stretch of the imagination, what we're going to end up having is a civil war all over again in this country, because he has empowered a new sense of, I don't even know what to call it in these individuals. These were individuals who were racist, who had these beliefs long before Donald Trump. but
Right.
just held them in check until Donald Trump empowered them and emboldened them. And we're starting to see this across the board. Now, I just say I would hope, because a lot of people don't realize when you're going to these polls and they're harassing these poll workers, what we fail to realize is that many of the workers you see at the polls are average, everyday citizens like you and I. They're there getting the paycheck just to do their civic duty and man the polls. They're not actually election workers. The workers, the paid people who are trained and certified in this stuff, aren't the ones that you're engaging when you give your voter registration card to. And they're not them. They're at the Board of Elections offices or at the warehouse, and they're overseeing the election. But the people that they're engaging and trying to act like they're ripping off this election and that it's some big conspiracy are average, everyday voters like you and I. They just getting paid a couple $100 to sit there for
Right.
12
but
to 13 hours. That's it.
And I agree with you. I agree with you. Here's the concerning part, that in those elections where they're too close to call, and then automatically you got some Republican standing in front of you and say, oh, no, I won. No, we won. And then next thing you know, if once the votes do, come in and they find out that they didn't win or something, you know what I mean? Like it's going to create some violent backlash as a result of people just not accepting the truth of the matter. When Donald Trump said, I remember that night, and I'm sure you did too. It's like one of those moments, like, where were you when that happened type of moments. When Donald Trump stood in front of the cameras 2, 3 in the morning and said he won the election against Biden. It was a Hillary. I think it was against Biden.
Mm.
And we were just like, what alternate universe is this dude talking about? What is he? You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, it's problematic on so many levels, Hassan. You and I know it. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of, by us both being media professionals, in terms of propaganda, in terms of not, completely devoiding people of their votes, even if they voted for you or against you or whatever the case may be. I mean, there's just so many fundamental things that are wrong about this whole situation. And it feels like there isn't any real control, like either Biden or Merrick Garland from the U.S. attorneys. Like, who's going to rein all of this stuff in? Like, if we know this, if we know that Republicans, MAGA diehards are plotting, who's going to rein this stuff in, bro?
Well, here's the difference, though, and this is why I feel a little bit more relief now than I did then, is because the biggest difference between now and that election was that the DOJ was controlled by Donald Trump, right? The entire federal government was controlled by it because he was the incumbent. At this point, Merrick Garland is the DOJ. President Biden, president, right? We have a democratically controlled Department of Justice and White House. So you're not going to see the same level that you would have saw when Trump was president, because at that point he still had some type of control in terms of enforcing the DOJ or encouraging them to do his bidding. He can't do that this time. He can't do it this year, and he damn sure won't be able to do it 2 years from now. Right. And so that is at least the level of checks and balances that should be okay. And then, see, people don't realize, if it gets out of that hands, it actually goes to the House of Representatives to be able to declare a winner in a case like the presidential. And because Democrats control the House, even though it's a very narrow margin, that still, again, gives the American people pause and relief, at least to some degree, to know that it's not just going to, be rammed down their throats because they made some backroom deals illegal. That Vanity Fair article, let me tell you something, Farajii. What's done in the dark is always brought to the light, but guess what? Not election stealing. I would be leery of where they got that information from, because you can best believe if they're really trying to steal an election, you and I ain't never going to hear about it until maybe after it's already over with, and maybe later on. But I'm not paying, because that's the type that, hey, look over there while I'm stealing something over here. That's what I feel about that article. I don't think they're going to be that stupid to be that open on a call, to have that leaked to a reporter. Like, trust and believe, at the highest levels of government, don't get it twisted. They've stole plenty of elections in our lifetime. We just don't know about it, right?
Right. Oh, that's a good point. That's an excellent point. Dirty Reds, you checked in. Dirty Red 76. You said voter intimidation doesn't scare me, but I am concerned about the police backing the intimidators. Same thing. I'm concerned about that. And Dirty Reds, I'm also concerned about the fact that if you have conspirators who are planning to kind of reshape the conversation, or rather the narrative about this election, that we might see some folks backing that. That's what I'm concerned with. Thank you, Dirty Red. Shalinda, you checked in and said Trump yesterday said to not vote on any senators because he doesn't want Biff Mitch, the senior Republican. I haven't heard that one, Shalinda, but I'm not so. If he did say, you saying he said it. Here's the thing: I haven't heard it, but I wouldn't be surprised because him and Mitch McConnell they don't see each other on the same page. Karen,
I wouldn't either, but that's a stupid philosophy. That's a stupid mindset to have when you're basically in control of the Republican Party and you don't want your own party to get control of the Senate because you don't like the person who's going to be the leader. Like, that's just idiot. That just shows you who Donald Trump really is.
Oh, no doubt. I wouldn't put it past him. I'm telling you, I wouldn't put it past him. As much as he can do some things that you'd be like, okay, he got away with that one. Then at some other times you're like, what the hell? I wouldn't put it past him. Karen, checking in. Good to hear from you, Karen. You said voters must be able to vote in peace and safety. Homeland Security should provide security at all polls and voting stations. I don't know if they even have the capacity for that.
They do. They have the capacity of what they want, right? Look, we just had a $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. We got plenty of money, all right? The problem is we have to allocate it to what we need it for. I don't need to have executive protection for my mayor walking around my city. Take that executive protection and put them at the polls. We got to step it up. I think Karen's right. You got to have not just Homeland Security. You got to have the sheriff department, the police department.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Regular duties of some of them, allocate those resources to the polls to make sure that not only the election directors and participants are protected, but the voters are as well.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, we'll continue the conversations. We're going to branch the conversation to international affairs as we check in with a Palestinian organizer, writer, digital coordinator, Laura Albas. She's going to give us some updates about what's been happening in Iran, as Iran is preparing for the Israeli elections that are coming up in a week, and talking about the killing of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini. This is the young lady that was killed while in police custody, and it has created a firestorm of protest from women all across the country of Iran, Palestine, and throughout the region, as women are finally saying enough of these draconian dress code laws there in the region. So we'll have that conversation. So stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
This is our time, our moment to move forward, beyond the gun violence, the hospital closures, the unaffordable housing. Brian Kemp's Georgia for the wealthiest few. Stacey Abrams is looking out for every Georgian. She'll invest our $6 billion surplus in the fundamentals, education, healthcare, housing, and a good living, putting more money in your pocket to build one Georgia where everyone has the freedom to thrive.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shootings.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, welcome back to the show. We want to shift gears from national politics to international politics as we're going to have a conversation about what's been happening in the Middle East, as there have been a number of major moves happening across the region where protesters, and mostly women, are leading protests against dress code laws that continue to be oppressive to women in the region and has led to the killing of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini. And as a result of that, there has been, Mahsa was killed in police custody 40 days ago. And as a result of that, there have been ongoing nonstop protests against these draconian dress code laws. And take a look at this. Weeks of protests that have shaken Iran since one woman's death show no sign of fading. Now, we want to check in. We have a couple of folks that are going to be checking in to have this conversation. First and foremost, I'm joined by my sister, Laura Aldas, who serves as the senior editor in digital communications for Palestinian Studies. And she is an organizer working with a number of folks who are working underground in that region. And she is doing her work in Washington, D.C. and across the country. In a few minutes, we will also bring in Brother Sinedu Wakorafor, who is our culture crew member, who is a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist. And we still got my brother Hassan Giordano, Mr. Politics, the founder and owner of DMV Daily Media Group. But Laura, let's start off with you. First and foremost, thank you again, Laura, for being with us today. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing okay. How are you, Farajii?
I'm all right. I've been wanting to have this conversation with you because I was here. I'm in Los Angeles, and there's this big poster right there on the freeway of Mahsa, the picture of Mahsa Amini. And when I first drove, this was like a few weeks ago, when I drove past this poster, and I was thinking to myself, who is Mahsa Amini? Like, who is this? So then I started to do some research, and I realized, I said, oh my gosh, this is a young woman who was killed in police presence as a result of some dress code laws. And as a result of that, it created a firestorm of protest of women who are deciding to say enough is enough, taking off their hijabs and showing their faces. And I mean, it started off with a quiet revolution, but now it has exploded. What's the latest with this situation?
So just to give a brief on everything that you mentioned, so the signs that you have been seeing, some in New York, some in LA, those have been paid for by some Iranian diaspora activists who have been raising money to raise awareness about what's happening in Iran, because traditional mainstream media has not been covering it as much. There has been more coverage now, but not in the beginning. It is 41 days of protests right now. So on September 13, Mahsa Amini, or as she's known by her Kurdish name, Jina Amini, was beaten and taken into custody by Iranian morality police while she was visiting Tehran from, she's from her hometown is in Kurdistan province, for allegedly wearing her hijab incorrectly. On September 16, she died because of the injuries inflicted by Iranian police. They basically killed her. That pushed people out to the street to protest the laws that are discriminatory against women, that make wearing hijab compulsory, that take away the agency of women over their bodies, their voices, their own freedom. And a slogan that we've been seeing during these protests has been woman, life, freedom. That has been circulating around. This dress code is imposed on women by the Iranian regime, by the Iranian theocracy. Since 41 days, people have been beaten, they've been attacked, assaulted, imprisoned, and this includes people who have been protesting, as well as journalists who have been covering these protests. Majority of them are women. These protests are led by Iranian women, and yesterday marked 40 days since Mahsa Amini's death. And 40 days is religiously symbolic in Islam. So mourners and protesters went to her hometown to pay their respects at the cemetery where she is buried, and they were faced with attacks by Iranian security forces. They shot at them. You saw women take off their hijab and wave it in the air, which has become sort of the image that we're seeing all over Iranian protests. And we are now 41 days. I don't think this is going to stop. The protests have been going on for a long time, and they're calling for one thing: a change in regime, freedom and rights for all people, including women.
So a couple of things, and we're going to bring my brothers into this discussion in a moment, but a couple of things. One is this: so she was killed simply for wearing her hijab the wrong way, based upon the area that she was in. That's based upon their laws. I want to make sure I'm clear on this. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is what I'm saying. And I also want to make it clear that these laws are not just in Iran. There are many laws around the world that are oppressive against women, which is, for example, anti-abortion laws in the United States, hijab bans in Canada or France, or making hijab compulsory in Iran. So it's important to look at that in that context, that women are seen as second-class citizens. They are not respected. They are oppressed. So she was beaten and taken into custody because of that. And there are two other young women who, many have died, but there are two other young women that we've seen on the news recently. They're actually schoolgirls, 16 years old, who protested in their school by removing their hijab and waving them around. That was around the end of September, and they were both found dead.
But Laura, sister, yeah. What is the for a violation of this? Is that the punishment? Is beating on a woman the quote unquote the normal punishment, or is there something prior to this getting to that place where you're physically beating on someone? What's generally the punishment for that violation?
That's what we have been seeing. There is no warning of put your hijab on properly or else. There's being taken into custody and being beaten. And this is because there's this extremist perception of what a woman should look like by the morality police. There are a range of punishments. There's fines, there's beatings, there's jail time. Morality police do as they see fit. We've also seen cases of sexual harassment by morality police on some of the women protesting.
So they have morality police in Iran and in other parts, but these are police that are responsible for dress codes and what else?
They're responsible for keeping up with the traditions of what the state believes are traditions of the state, of the culture of the state, whether it's how women are dressed, how they appear, what they say, how they act. These are all by the Iranian regime. They decide.
They decide.
And they say it's based on religious texts, but religion is not violent. It's people who are violent.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, what is, as a result of this protest, Laura, at all of these protests, women are taking off. What is the big goal that protesters, activists, are we talking about? What exactly? Like, what do y'all want to see? What is it talking about? Dismantling the morality police? Is it talking about, changing the laws? What are some of the goals here?
So there are many goals. A lot of this, and the main one is a change of the regime, going towards a more secular government, giving rights to women that do not, and giving agency to women. But there are nobody is a monolith, right? No people are a monolith. There are some activists who are calling for US sanctions, and there are activists who are saying, no, we do not want intervention. We just want attention and solidarity as we take on our own fight against our oppressive government. So we've seen both here and there. And that's what I can say about it, yeah.
I want to bring in my brother. So we got Shanadu Wakanda, who is the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Specialist. We got Hassan Giordano, Mr. Politics. Shanadu, when we hear about stories, and this story really touched me, brother, to be honest with you, which is why I'm so happy to have my sister on, because, when we think about all of the rights and freedom conversations and diversity conversations that we have in this country, there are still places in the world, Shanadu, where we're still light years behind in some of this. And my concern is, especially for women, if this is being done to women in modern day times, 2022, what do we do with that?
I think it's very important that with what's going on in Iran, is that folks understand that what is happening there is a global attack on women, period. Regardless of what the religious context may be down there. We're at a stage in our lives, not only with media, where we all know what's happening at the same time in real time, but we're at a place where men, very powerful men, are doing whatever they can to control women in any shape, size, or form. And I think the amazing part of what's happening to this story about late Masha Amini is people are saying, no way, Jose. And I find it very important that we have these conversations about what's going on in Iran, especially because when you think about when people protest in America, we have the freedom to assembly. We have these laws. These young girls who are taking off their hijabs, who are burning their hijabs, they are literally risking their lives to make a statement. And I think it is our duty to stand with them in solidarity because, in all honesty, they have everything to lose.
And that's the other part about this, Laura. I mean, a lot of the women there need, you want to stand in support, but then at the same time, I'm wondering, what does if these countries are so quote unquote far behind in understanding and seeing the value of women, who are understanding the rights of women, what do supporters outside of the country can do to help move the struggle that women have in these countries to the next level? That's the first part. But then the second part is, this is unfortunately under the banner of Islam, right? Of course, we've seen Christian oppression, but in this particular case, this is under the banner of Islam, and as one who subscribes to that way of thinking, it's sad. It has to be called out, because this is not the Prophet, may peace and Allah be with him, but this is not the Prophet's way. He did not say beat a girl to death because of the way she wears her hijab. This is so sad and sickening at the same time. Talk to me, Laura.
Exactly, Farajii. I just want to say that women in the Middle East are not damsels in distress. We're not waiting for a Western savior to come and save us, whether it's in Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, or Palestine. We are leading our own revolution ourselves. We just need the support and attention and solidarity of anyone who is privileged enough to amplify the voices that are back in the Middle East, that are in defiance of oppressive regimes, and specifically oppressive regimes. And we have to keep in mind that, the United States supports regimes that are oppressive, that regularly jail, kill, and abuse innocent people, innocent women, including Saudi Arabia, and including apartheid Israel. But the United States doesn't care about the people in these countries. It cares about its own interests, whether it's oil, influence. But for some reason, Iran is treated differently than Israel or Saudi Arabia or Egypt or the UAE. It is seen as the boogeyman when these are all oppressive regimes that are doing the same thing to their people. And you are right. This is not what Islam teaches us. This is a regime that needs to be held accountable. People want a certain state that gives them their rights, where they can walk freely, where they can say whatever they want, where they can wear whatever they want. If they want to wear the hijab or not, it is their business. It is not the state's business. No. It's terrible what we're seeing today, but it's also inspiring to see all these people in the street consistently for 41 days calling for woman, life, and freedom.
Hassan, talk to me in terms of, we know the politics of it here in America, but across the waters, the political system is very, very different. When you hear about the case of our sister Mahsa Amini, happening, and you see women protest, what should we expect? What do you foresee happening? How do you think this is going to impact the relationship that America has with the Middle Eastern region? And what do you foresee happening over the next couple of weeks?
Well, my heart breaks first and foremost for the young sister and our family, right? It's a 22. That's what we got to understand. This is a 22-year-old young woman who was murdered. Right, we see this right here, George Floyd and everything we saw in America. That's what this is over there. There's really no other way to put it. But the American government has never really had a great relationship with the Islamic Republic of Iran. Right, they're an oppressive theocracy that really needs to go. We've seen this in other places across the globe, from Egypt and from decades and years past. And so, it'll be interesting to see if the Biden administration actually weighs in on this and really does anything. And I'd be surprised if they did. We saw what they've done with Brittany Griner, which is basically nothing but a bunch of sound bites when they're asked and forced to do so. But Laura's so correct. Like, Islam isn't violent. And I'm glad this is being said and had conversations being had on this program, because people have to understand that we are still living in a society where people put Islam in a certain light when they don't understand the actual religion and the way of life. That is not what Islam is about. It never has been. And, like she said, and I always say this, it's just like guns don't kill people. Stupid people with guns kill people. It's the same way here, right? Islam does not kill people. It does not condone this level of violence. Unfortunately, the Iranian regime has always done this, right? This isn't nothing new, but I'm glad it's finally coming to the attention. We saw this in Egypt when they stood up and we saw the protests, and it was a change there. And I think people who are watching this who are actually suffering those same oppressions, take an example from this right here and be able to do this, because again, it's never a big effort to start. It always starts with a small core. Unfortunately, Haiti and a couple others had to lose their lives because of it, but hopefully we get to a better Iran because of it.
Let's go to a couple of comments very quickly. Nisa, 1971. Nisa, good to hear from you, sis. You checked in and said, no rights and so much oppression for women in Islam, but also strict Christian communities. I think, Nisa, you know, we see oppression just in religion in general, right? And this is the thing. I think Laura, Sinead, and Hassan, this is why I think a lot of young people in particular, especially in this time, turn away from being labeled, you know, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm this or I'm that, because there has been so much damage caused and there's so much pain caused in the name of these religions, right? And so many, the next generation is not trying to attribute their beliefs or their value system to this oppressive expression. These religions aren't oppressive, but the expression of them and the interpretation of them coming from mostly men makes them oppressive. So good point there, Nisa. Dirty Reg, you said the thing about religion is we have to differentiate between tradition, man's laws, and God's laws. And I think, to your point, Laura, that's one of the big challenges. How do you, and to Dirty Red's point, how do you think that is going to play out? Because, yes, we're seeing these protests. It doesn't seem like they're fading. We know that there are a number of women in this region that are rising up who are taking off the hijab. But how do we make sure that it doesn't tip into the other scale where you know, theocracy is thrown completely out the window, where God's law is completely thrown out the window? I mean, how do we establish that balance from your vantage point?
I think one thing to be clear about is Islam is a religion that respects women. We say that paradise is under the feet of mothers. We say that you must respect your woman, you must respect your mother, your sister, your friend. This is not a religion that hates women. This is a religion that welcomes women openly. And we've seen this historically in the region and abroad. I don't think this is a question of where do we draw the line. I don't think that it is at all. I don't think this is a question of religion at all. This is a question of an oppressive state that wants to control its people. It wants to have full control over women and queer individuals in its own state and its own country. This is about state control, state police. It's not about religion. I think everybody has to have the freedom of choosing their own faith and practicing their own faith the way that they see it. I may not wear a hijab, but my cousin does. That does not mean that we are not faithful to the same degree. It just means that we choose to practice our faith in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a few moments left, and Laura, I want us to, as we talk about this unfortunate killing of our little sister Mahsa Amini, let's talk about the fact of, you know, you got these major election coming up in Israel and the impact that that's going to have as protests are continuing to happen. And next week, folks, Israelis go to the polls, and former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has thrown his hat to be in the ring to be reelected, and he has been a longtime leader of Israel, as he met with various presidents and has dictated in a lot of ways, and it's caused a lot of pain, a lot of bloodshed during his time. But he's looking to get back into power come next week. You know, Laura, talk to us a little bit about what the implications are for this election and how pivotal it is for folks to not bring an individual like a Benjamin Netanyahu back into power.
So Israel likes to call itself the only democracy in the Middle East. This is a talking point that is repeated by many Israel supporters, from Bill Maher to Kamala Harris. But this is not an election. This is not a democracy. There's millions of Palestinians who are living under Israeli apartheid, who are living under the Israeli occupation. There are Palestinians who hold Israeli citizenship that have a right to vote in these elections, but have absolutely no power, no influence, and are not treated with any dignity. There is no right wing or left wing in the Israeli occupation under the Israeli regime. There's only settler colonial violence. There are settlers who exist on land that is not theirs, who take over homes that are not theirs, who kill children that are not theirs. So yes, Israel is going into, what is it, the 4th or 5th election on November 1st. Clearly, they're not coming to an agreement of who they want for them to lead them. But we know that regardless of who the prime minister is, and there is a possibility that Netanyahu would come back, that the policies will remain the same. Ethnic cleansing, apartheid, no accountability whatsoever, killing journalists, killing children. And there's one politician who's rising right now, and people may be familiar with him from social media or just from TV. His name is Ben Gvir. Ben Gvir is part of what you would call an extremist organization under the Israeli regime. He waves guns all around. He threatens to kill Palestinian children. He has openly called for the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. He has gone to the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood in Jerusalem, the same neighborhood where protests erupted from in defense of families whose homes were to be taken away from them, who they were about to be expelled. And he has set camp there and brought other settlers, younger settlers, and asked and provoked them to attack Palestinians. There is a very big possibility that this man's going to win a lot of seats or win a lot of support in the Israeli Knesset, the Israeli parliament. The polls show that around 30 to 40% of Israelis under 35 are planning to vote for him. And he might win about 10% of the seats in the 120-seat Knesset, the 120-seat parliament. And, you know, he might end up in a coalition led by Netanyahu, who might come back, or by Yair Lapid, who is currently the prime minister. But regardless of that, the Israeli regime continues to become more violent and more oppressive. And it continues to kill and expel Palestinians from their land. To give you one example, this month alone, we're not seeing this at all on the media, but Israeli occupation forces have increased their attacks, assaults, and raids into cities in the West Bank, specifically Hebron, or as we know it as Al-Khalil, and Nablus. In the past week, they've killed 6 young men because of this. A lot of people have come out and there are protests right now in the West Bank happening in Nablus, to the extent that the Israeli occupation forces, for the first time since the early 2000s, have used aerial missiles to shoot down at protesters. We have to understand the context here. This is almost 75 years of an occupation. Palestinians living under surveillance. Every single day, a child is kidnapped. Last week, it was a 14-year-old girl from Jerusalem. Raids in the middle of the night. Arrests that are indefinite, without charge, without reason, just to put pressure on people and to psychologically torture them. And then murders. And this is just October. You know, they killed Shireen Abu Akleh, a Palestinian journalist, back in May. They've killed children in Gaza. They've bombed Gaza twice in the past 2 years. Nothing's going to change. We're just going to continue to see the same occupying, murderous regime led by Israelis who want to ethnically cleanse people like me and my family, while the United States government continues to send $3.8 billion of tax money that belongs to us as Americans for our schools and our healthcare systems and our livelihood to go to the Israeli military to kill Palestinians. That's where our money is going.
Hassan, I know you got to hop off, but I do want to get your take on that, because billions of dollars are being sent to Israel each and every year, no question. We know the power of the Israeli lobby in America. If it looks like Netanyahu will be back in power, how do you foresee this impacting the relationship that the United States has with Israel, and the fact that the United States has its hand in what's in other parts of the Middle East?
Yeah, well, I've always personally felt, and I think quite a few have felt, that America has unfairly and unjustly been way too close to Israel. All relations with the Middle East. Now, I personally, the United Nations did a disservice to Israel back in 1947 when they had this Jewish state, right? That obviously the Israeli leaders at the time didn't even really want it. They just went along with it. Arabs did not. Obviously, Palestinians were locked out of that process, as the sister was talking about. What kills me, though, is Benjamin Netanyahu has basically killed the relationships Israel's had across the globe, including here in America, over his 12 years of rule and reign and terror, because that's all it was. This man is still under indictment. He's still being charged with crimes right now as he's running to try to get back his seat of power. And she was talking about Ben Gvir. It's not even funny, because people who don't understand the politics of Israel look at Ben Gvir is like Donald Trump of America, right? This is a very extreme individual. And yet Benjamin said just last year, when he lost his seat of power, he would never make him a minister in his alliance back then. Now, because he sees his power and his influence, he's trying to bring him in as a part of his coalition. In the past week and a half, has said multiple times that he will make him a minister in his regime. And mind you, this man has already said, Ben Gvir said, I'm not taking nothing, ceremonial. I want real power. And power to them is safeguarding not only their positions, but also they're trying to be able to have a coalition that looks to choose their own judges, that have wide range immunity from prosecution from their own politicians, and a viable mechanism to be able to judge and strike down anti-democratic legislation. So this is the type of coalition that Netanyahu is trying to put together. And it's unfortunate. And I think that he will be victorious, unfortunately, the way the polls have suggested, because Lapid just doesn't seem to be able to gain any traction.
Wow. I know we got a few moments left, Laura, and I want to get your response to that, because from what I've learned about Netanyahu and the things that he has been responsible for, man, I hope if Israel is serious about trying to turn a different chapter, trying to stop the reign of terror, then they wouldn't elect Benjamin Netanyahu back. But I'm with you and Hassan, it's going to take the relationships crazy. And now, even more so than that, and I never understood why we don't have more in-depth conversations about the level of support that's given to Israel from the United States. And it's actually, in that, I remember when the number, Laura, was like 1.8 or 1.3 billion or something. It was low. And the number keeps increasing. It's absolutely mind-blowing. But what's your take on this as we get to the final word from you?
Yes, the number keeps increasing, and it's also insulting that last year in 2021, after the Israeli assault on Gaza, Biden came out and gave an extra $1 billion to the Israeli military, just to put that out there. Now, on the conversation about Netanyahu and the relationship with the United States, let me be very clear. The Israeli government does not respect the United States government. The U.S., every single U.S. administration has always been acting as a lapdog for Israel. Netanyahu switches his loyalties with every president and approaches them a different way. Under Obama, he disrespected Obama and went straight to Congress.
I remember that.
Without an invitation, and spoke about how they should be, I don't know.
That was unprecedented, Laura. He did that like in the House. In the
House. Zero respect. With Trump, he supported everything Trump is saying, had these huge billboards in the streets of apartheid Israel showing how much he supports Trump. And as soon as Biden comes up, he changes his loyalties again. I think what we need to be clear about, Farajii, is Israel is never going to be serious about anything. This is our land. We are not looking for a peace agreement. We are not looking for negotiations. We are looking for our land back, our freedoms back, our liberation as the Palestinian people that has been stripped from us, that we suffer every single day through raids, assaults, kidnappings, imprisonment, surveillance. They now have surveillance technology that recognizes your face, and if it thinks that you're doing something wrong, it will shoot you. It is all operated by AI, and that's in Hebron. Now, when we talk about Ben Gvir, that we mentioned, who is rising, he's just a symptom of a bigger problem. The next generation of young Israelis are more violent, they're more hateful, and more intent on purging indigenous Palestinians from their native land. We've seen this, it's documented multiple times. They've went to the streets and chanted death to the Arabs. Now, in the United States, while the US government is extremely supportive of apartheid Israel, we have seen polls that came out that show that more Democrats are questioning the US support to Israel. More young people are questioning why is Israel doing this to the Palestinians? There has been a slight shift in the United States amongst youth, in the progressive Democratic Party, who are looking more critically at the situation. But the government is not changing. The administration has been the same. Biden is not someone that anyone should trust to do anything. He's a failed president. He can't even he cannot even lead his own people here in America for us to trust him to have any deals or any conversations or any influence in the region.
We're going to have to end the conversation right there. Laura Alibas, who serves as one of our contributors here. She's also serving as the senior editor in digital communications for Palestine Studies, and she's an organizer working out of Washington, D.C. Hassan, my brother, thank you so much for the extra few minutes you spent with us today. And we'll continue the conversation with Brother Shenadu in a few moments. Folks, and Laura, thank you so much. And we'll certainly bring you back on as we see the case of Mahsa Amini continues to develop and to get more updates from the front lines, especially with so many women protesting. We got to stay on the story. We have to stay on the story. So, Laura, I appreciate your time with us this afternoon. Thank you.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Farajii.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's take that conversation and I'm going to put it in a different context. Let's talk about, is the male ego, not black men, just male ego killing black women? This is coming out of the story that I've been advocating for of the 22-year-old sister, Asia Womack, who was killed by a 31-year-old friend, quote unquote, because of a basketball game. Y'all remember this story. Now, as the details and the arrest has been made of Cameron Hogg, there are questions about male ego being brought up and how this may impact a lot of the relationship between men and women. We'll have that conversation up next with Culture Crew member Shenadu Wakorafor. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in. Folks, I want to bring in my brother, Sinedu Wakanda, who is a Culture Crew member. He is a diversity, equity, inclusion specialist as we have this conversation. And Sinedu, man, I know we spent a little bit extra time on that story, but I needed to get that out, bro. It needed to be said about the case of Mahsa Amini, because a lot of our people may not have known about this 22-year-old little sister who lost her life just simply because the way she wore her hijab, and she lost her life as a result of that. It's heartbreaking. It is heartbreaking. And that's why I wanted to at least have this conversation. And I know when we wanted to talk, when looking at putting the show together, and, the question about the male ego came up, and I know that I knew a Culture Crew member was going to say, Farajii, we're the women. You got to have a woman to talk about this. But I wanted to talk about it with you first, just simply because as men, we need to talk to other men about this, because we know where women stand. I think a lot of women understand it. They experience it. They feel it. But I'm not sure if men really understand how our ego can lead to a woman's demise, or lead to a woman feeling less than herself, or even lead to a woman being killed. Just as much as we saw Mahsa Amini getting killed because she broke some law on how she wore her hijab, we see a situation like Asia Womack, who was killed because she was a young woman who beat a grown man in basketball, and he could not handle it, brother. He could not handle it. And when I read, I'm gonna stay on this story, folks, because it just mind-blowing that the male ego is so fragile, Sinedu. And you work with young men, you work with young women, you're in the work of diversity and equity inclusion. I mean, you work with our people. But this is so fragile. I wanted to share this quote. This comes out of the story that the Root did around this. And take a look at this, folks. In this op-ed, male ego is killing Black women. It says, I'm not saying, and this is from the writer, I'm not saying the use of female alone makes a man a killer, but men who fail to see women as people deserving of equal respect often use that as a noun in place of woman. Asia might have been a female basketball player, but she was a woman. Women deserve that distinction for the sake of their humanity, not to mention proper grammar. And then the second part, let me just share the second part very quickly, then Sinedu, we're gonna get to you. She said, we live in a society that continues to instruct men to view women as not only weaker than men, but to see them as objects to be dominated by men. So men are told that they can't lose anything to a woman, certainly not anything that requires physicality. When a man does, it's not a testament to the athleticism of a woman, but the perceived inadequacies of the man who lost. It's an attitude you often find in men who play sports, but it applies to men collectively in their broader treatment of women. And when it comes to Black women in particular, this mindset leads to a dangerous reality. That's from the Root. So take a look at this. Male ego killing male ego is killing Black women. Sinead, what say you on this? Do you believe that to be the case?
Man, not gonna like this. Male ego has destroyed the world, and that's from the beginning of time, because we see this in our community as African Americans, where we'll say something along the lines of, you know, oppression, oppression, oppression. But then we forget that men have this. Excuse me a second.
Sure.
Men have this this fantasy that they have control over everybody. That's man and woman. And what's sad is men do not share equity with women. You see it in the workplace. You see it in politics. You see it in society. You see it globally, where you still have women showing up as the first of something in this day and age. And I think the reason why women, this is a conversation for men. And I'm going to tell you why. When we talk about racism, you hear Black people say a lot of times, it is not our job to sit here and educate white people. White people need to have this conversation with themselves. And in that same, with that same manner, I think the same thing about this conversation. Men need to have a conversation. Why could something so heinous happen? Because let's leave the killing to the side. Let's think about, why did this brother challenge this woman in the first place?
Right.
What did he want to prove? What did he want to aggrandize in that moment? Did he want to overtake her? Women are still seen as pieces of property or pieces of things that need to be mounted upon. Excuse my language, but it's almost like they're expendable. And this is not new, but what is new is the technology of how information is now shared. Now, the women in, listen, I'm going to tie it together. The women in Iran are hearing what the cries of the Black women are saying here, and vice versa. And they're realizing that the issue is the same. Whether you're looking at religion, whether you're looking at sexuality, it does not matter. Men have an issue with allowing women to have their voice. And just like before, and just like it'll be now and tomorrow, I think women have had enough. And I think it is time that men have this conversation with each other, where we address our egos and we lay them down and try to figure out, how do we heal from being this type of person? Who is raising us to be this type of person? What policies are allowing us to be this type of, what cultural infrastructure? Because this is religion, this is politics, this is all things. Law, everything you think about is all helping to propel the man to feel like he gets to dominate women.
Brother, I couldn't agree with you more, which is, again, part of the reason why I felt like you were the best brother to have this conversation with as we started off, because you understand the complexities of it. And I know some brothers that might say, well, no, you can't blame, and no, I see Chris, I got you, you say you can't blame men for all of women's problems. It's not blame. This is simply about taking responsibility and being accountable for what we have done, how our ego has shaped a woman's view of herself, has shaped the relationship that we have with women, how our ego is expressed through policy, right? Whether you're in economics, a political or social space, how our ego has created or has power in shaping the culture of how we deal with one another. I mean, it's coming from that. And then we can say Black man ego, we can say white man ego. But the point is that men, we have dominated, right? And our authority is not always rooted in righteousness, not always rooted in equity. It's not always rooted in respect and inclusion. It's not always rooted in making sure that there's a space at the table or a seat at the table for women to be seen and heard. It's not rooted in that. And I think that that's the pushback. And I think that it's not enough for women to tell a man to do that. A man has to step up and say, you know what? I was wrong. That's my fault. I take accountability for allowing my ego to dictate how you should be. And when we see in this case of Asia Womack, the dude could not get past, bro, the fact that he was beaten by a girl, she, trash talking, and he got to his head. But you know what, Sinead, I see this in a lot of black men. A lot of these young brothers, and this ain't no bashing, because I'm a young black man, I've been there. But a lot of these brothers don't have the thin skin, man. They talk so hard on we talk so hard on the street. We talk so hard on each other, right? But then the moment somebody confronts you, you don't have what it takes. You can't take a joke. You can't take a tease. You can't take being beaten by a girl, quote unquote, or a woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think listen, it's not about blame. Like you said, it's about responsibility. And, I hear what Chris is saying, but at the same time, you have to think about it. The reason why I think men have such a high responsibility in this case is because back to the Amini case, for there to be a change in that country, legally, who's going to make it? All men. Here, the abortion case, the highest percentage of the people who are making this decision are what? Men. So the reason why I say we have a bigger responsibility, because the scale is skewed. It doesn't matter how equal things need to be. I think it has nothing to do, in my opinion, this has less to do with women and more to do with, why do men feel like women are the things that need to be conquered? Why do men feel threatened by a woman? But then we say things like Mother Nature, Mother Earth. You don't disrespect your mother. The thing that whence life came from. You disrespect that. And it's not about blame, but remember, that young girl who got killed could be your sister, my mother, my aunt. It could be anybody. And we shouldn't wait for it to be somebody close to us for it to affect us. And furthermore, there should be a greater respect for our women, and more importantly, for ourselves. We are sharing this planet. We are sharing this earth. We are sharing this experience. And if we continue to not see the partnership between man and woman, it's not about who is strong. You don't choose between your heart or your lungs. It's about the conjunction, the intersectionality of everybody playing their part for each other.
Right.
And I think men, I don't know why. No, I do know why. But I ain't gonna say it here. But I think it is high time that men start questioning themselves, because we want to remove the blame from us until your sister, your mother, your aunt replaces the name of the newest headline.
Let me just share with you, because our online culture crew, man, they're having a conversation and they're checking me and want me to be very clear. My brother, who I greatly respect, Brother King Lee, he said, Farajii, it would be nice to state immature males, because not all men, emotionally immature men. And that's true. And I'm gonna be very clear, King. I got you. Immature men that are in our community, right? But why are these men immature? Because somewhere along the line, we still, in our community, as part of our current culture, we still hold on to the belief that men don't cry, men aren't weak, men don't serve nobody else, right? Really, because let's take it back, Sinead. You know the history like I know. We go hard, black men in particular, we go hard on our women, but when we're around white men, right, that relationship changes, because historically, white men have gone hard on us and made us feel like less than. And it is in a man's nature to have some sort of power and authority. It's in a man's nature. Same thing for a woman, power and authority. But if you are in the presence of someone who you deem as having more power, greater authority, then you're not going to assert yourself. It's like the old thing, and this is something that I see, and I'm not going too far off topic, but it's like we will tear up our neighborhood, right? But in every major city in this country, Black people, we do not go into certain white places. Or we tell ourselves we better get our act together before we go into this neighborhood. Why? Now when we among ourselves, we do whatever. But we already inherently, fundamentally, mentally and psychologically know that if I'm going into this neighborhood, I can't create no ruckus. If I'm going into this space, So this is an attempt to, at least for us, to start to look at ourselves and to get back to a place that where both men and from both women can find power, authority, and authenticity. And brother, especially like the work that you do in the workplace, that we learn that we do have a problem. And I'm saying as a man to another man, we have a problem. Our ego has gotten in the way of us making sound decisions, of us having balanced relationships, healthy, positive relationships. Our ego has gotten in the way of a lot of things, Brother Shanadu.
Yeah, and if I could just
go ahead, bro.
Just think about this. By societal standards, I'm going to go back to Amini. The male rule of that nation, and I keep saying male dominated, is that the woman should wear a headscarf. She had it on, but it wasn't in the same fashion that you would like. Do y'all see what I'm saying? Like, right. How even the man's inequity towards a woman is not enough for a man. Because you see that a woman in America makes maybe 60 or 65 cents to $1 to a man, but then you'll find ways that's still not enough. Y'all don't see that as a problem? And the reason why I bring this up is because when you throw race in it and it's about white versus black, we automatically have a reason why the playing field needs to be laid and this is unfair, this is unfair. But then now when you bring this leveling scale in, you know, all of a sudden it's like, hold on a second, it's not all men, but we all are responsible. We all benefit from it, whether you're immature or men. Men benefit from a system that has been male dominated since almost forever. So whether we are mature or not, the system is set up for the man to do well. Just like it doesn't matter if the white man is rich or poor, the system is set up better for him than it is for a black person. I think we need to see that correlation. Now, as it comes to black people, I do believe that we have to be fair and speak of slavery and how that amplified this phenomenon. But at that same point, I say this to my brothers every day. At some point, do you not wake up and look at the mirror and just say, I want to be healed?
Come on, man. Like, come on, Shanadu. Come on, bro.
It's time for maybe the mature men to come and ask the immature men, do you want to be healed or do you want to keep walking a zombie, a dead body living?
Come on, brother. Come on. Shanadu, you talking to my soul, man. You talking to my soul right now. And I think that's the point, bro. That is the point. Like we can't keep going down this lane. And this is why, I mean, this case, y'all, of Asia Womack hit me so hard. You know, I put out my little pieces on Twitter, but it didn't hit me so hard because it's like we are literally killing each other. And I'm thinking, to your point, Sinead, you saying, do we want to be healed? See, a man that's asked himself the question, do you want to be healed, has the potential to be healed because he's already came to the point of questioning his own behavior, questioning his own thinking. So if you're at that point, then there's some hope for you. But if you're not even posing a question, this is the power of questions. This goes to the power of questions. And I love what you asked that. For those mature men When you see a young brother acting out of character, acting out of himself, because that's not really who he is. He trying to play to somebody else's perception or expectation. To ask him, brother, do you want to be healed? Whew. Now, that question right there alone forces me to ask, well, when was I violated? When was I hurt? How was I hurt? Who hurt me? Let's go back to the culture crew. Willie, my guy, you said, I believe that the perception of strength is skewed. We're told to be strong, tough, protector, and provider. When these descriptions aren't met, it causes a mental break. I agree. I agree. When a man doesn't meet the expectation that he set for himself and for that others expect of him, then there is a break. There is a huge break. Now, Sinead, what do you advise to people in the workplace when they don't meet certain standards of the workplace, right? Especially men. When they don't meet certain standards of the workplace, when people start to see that their performance is not as high as it is, or they're not producing the way they should. And I'm assuming that men really take that as a blow, as a not just a workplace issue. They take it as a personal thing of, I'm not good enough. Am I wrong in thinking that?
No, that's the first place it goes to. I'm not good enough, and in the workplace is always important. I think I do a little different strategies. I don't like to say, "Hey, you're failing at this," because I know that emotionally people are not always ready to handle that. That's why I say, "Hey, this isn't your best place, but I've seen you do this in this place. If you can leverage that strength and do that here, you do better." This way you leave it as a neutral comment and not as a negative, because in the process of fixing ego, we have to address it in a neutral place, because unfortunately, fortunately, especially men take things very, very personal. And I'm sure a psychologist may have more detail on this. When men usually get that type of degrading, or what they may call degrading feedback, the first thing that they're looking to do is retaliate that on somebody else or stretch that out on somebody else. And I have been a proponent of that myself. So as I began to heal myself, and now as a professional in the workplace and an HR perspective, I said, now when I lead, I don't do it that way. I lead with suggestions. And it's not about being soft. And that's another thing. It's not about being soft. It's about being constructive. And if you look at the word constructive, I can't build by continually breaking down. That method actually does not work in this junction of life that we're in. So I think it's very important that maybe that worked before, but maybe it's not working now. Like we got more information and now we know more. So in spaces like that, I think it's very important that, and this is not about coddling, but it's about doing something in a very constructive way where all parties can benefit.
Right. We got a few more minutes with you, Sinead, so I'm certainly grateful of your time today. As we look at this issue of misogyny, of male ego, where does the healing start? Now that you put that question, do you want to be healed? What would you say is the one or the first step, or the first and second step of healing to start? Because I just hate to read another story like the one of Asia Womack. I hate to read another story of the one of Masa Amini, because even at the end of the day, for that situation, a male ego, it's a man felt like it was his job to beat on a young woman, because she didn't follow his rules. Where do we start with the healing of this, bro?
I think, they say admitting that something is an issue is a good start. And I think that's a very good start. I think therapy is a good start, but I am very cultural and spiritual, and you may not get answers here, but go and address your elders. Ask them how we got here. I think that's a part of the order of operations that people forget. Let's go back generations to figure out maybe how this small seed blossomed into this dangerous flower. Because I think when you know that information,
yeah,
then you finally do the third thing that I think is the most important, and that's go to therapy. You actually have a timeline of the before that you're doing in the now, and then you can set different milestones for what you're going to do tomorrow. But the thing is, you got to want to do it and believe it. And I use this example all the time. I have meditated before for many years, and it never worked until recently. I did it, and I told myself, I want this to work. I want this to have an effect on me. And by announcing that and bringing that forth, it did for the first time. I think sometimes people do things as a box check off, right? Oh, I went to therapy, I talked about it. But are you really actually making the actionable changes? Are you telling yourself that this, because this is a whole reprogramming. We're all grown now. You're reprogramming yourself not only against what you've been told, but you're programming yourself against the current of reality that has been paved by society.
Right.
That is a hard pill to swallow. But I think it really just starts with, again, us checking our elders, male elders. So I don't think this is the job of women. Women do enough. We can't keep going to them for free help. Check with our elders for sure. Kind of ask ourselves that questions. And men, go to therapy, go to groups with other, bring your brothers with you, because if you're not healing the people next to you, you're actually setting yourself up to get reinfected.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me see. I saw another comment from our culture crew online talking about, when a man approaches a woman, and this is more of a relationship thing, but like when a man approaches a woman and she rejects his offer, then a man starts to call her names and call her outside of, call her all types of stuff as a result of that rejection. And it's just that moment, just so quick right there in that moment that a situation can get violent, right? Where we see that being the dangerous reality that the Root article was talking about. In just that moment where a man feels like he has access, he's entitled to getting your time, your attention, your body, all of those things. And I love how you said it, brother. This is not for the woman to try to help us with. As a man, you should know right and wrong, but more importantly, as a man, you should be in tune with yourself, that when you step out of pocket, you step out of character, that you have the power. You don't need a woman to tell you how to treat a woman in the sense of, telling you what's right and wrong. It's wrong. And maybe you just need to hear that from another man. Because that's the space that I grew up in. That's the space that you got your father. I got my father. I have uncles. I have men around me who checked me and who still can check me, right? And I feel like sometimes for the younger generation, that's not necessary. They don't have that support system, bro. So that when their egos get the best of their decision making, then they're making decisions and they don't have somebody to check me. Somebody should have checked Cameron Holt and said, "Hey, bro, what you thinking about doing?" "Man, I ain't appreciate that. She made me look silly on the court." Blah, 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 blah. And oh, wait, man, what you think about doing though? You really gonna pull the trigger because a little young sister beat you in basketball? You really gonna take her life, destroy your life and the community because of that? Because you can't take losing? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, men checks, we should, and that's what I'm saying. Like along with that question of, do you want to be healed? It's like we got to create that boundary as men again, where, and it's happening in certain spots, but I'm saying wholesale, creating that space where a man checks another man. And if you want to rise up in your chest a little bit, then there's some men that can help you to bring you back down to earth. We just need to have that back in the part of the culture, because that's how a lot of us grew up. We had a checks and balance system. Men need to check men. Yes, a woman can certainly stand in, but a man needs to check a man. All right, brother, I'm off my soapbox, man. But this thing gets to, I'm saying, when I tell y'all folks, it breaks my heart. This thing broke my heart, man. And I just like, where's the boundary? Where's the boundary? Now I'm happy to hear that in this community we call the culture crew, that no man has said, well, he was right, or yeah, I mean, I can understand. No man has said that, so I'm happy to hear that. But there has to be some checks and balances. So Sinead, I appreciate you, bro.
Mm-hmm. And as I said before, as we all are thinking about this, just keep asking yourself, don't think about why he killed her. Think about why he played her in the first place. That is the part that nobody wants to really talk about. Because if you already believe that you were dominating her, then what were you playing her for? But please,
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Hey, Sinead Wakofor, thank you so much. Diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist. Good brother. He's an activist, always on the front line. Sinead, I appreciate you. Thank you, brother. And God willing, we'll reconnect soon next week.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let me give you some updates with trends, posts, and doing the most. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shootings.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are black beyond measure.
All right, folks, for the final few minutes of today's show, we just want to bring you up to speed on some things that are trending right now. Oh, man. I know a lot of you didn't want me to keep talking about this guy. But I got to talk about him. Yay. I mean, he's like the story that this don't stop giving. Kanye West, folks. He is trending right now as he has put out, he's back on Instagram apparently. And he has gone so far as to say he's trying to recover because these corporations are hitting him hard in the pockets. As Meek Mill said, they don't hang you, they won't anymore, they will just drain your account. Well, the word is that he dropped from billionaire status, which a lot of people have been talking about, down to, oh my gosh, folks, he's down to 400 million. Oh my God, how does he live? How does he work? How does he wake up and see himself in the mirror? He's not a billionaire, he's a millionaire. He's only worth 400 million? Really? You went from a billionaire to 400 million and we still 400 million? What? 400 million? Bro, you set for life. Your children are set. But he's not even concerned about that, according to his latest Instagram post, where he posted in talking to one of the to Ari Emanuel, who is a major power broker in Hollywood and in sports and entertainment, and making the point, as he calls it, his love speech, said that he lost $2 billion in a day. Wow. People are trying to figure out, like, what? Now he's still recovering. He's still trying. He's still getting. I mean, the fallout from his comments is vicious. Now they're even saying that he said those who have been close to him said that he has been a personal admirer of Adolf Hitler. Oh, I don't know what to say. So he's lost $2 billion in a day, and he's now being painted as an admirer of Adolf Hitler, even going as far as to say that at one point he thought about naming one of his albums after Hitler. I don't think we will see the end of this fallout today, folks. I think this is just going to be, we might see something even over the next few weeks. So if you are tired of hearing about Kanye West, I don't know what to tell you, because the fallout is absolutely real. And when I saw this story about Hitler, I was just thinking to myself, like, man, this is a cautionary tale for so many people. So many people. Oh my God. There's so many things that we can pull out, but we don't have the time to talk about this today. But so many lessons that can be learned from Kanye West's trajectory and his story. Wow. That's all I can say. It's wow. So that's trending right now. Also, let's talk about Rihanna. Rihanna is trending because after a long, she took a little hiatus. Apparently, she is back. She went back into the studio and decided to make a song for the upcoming Black Panther film, Wakanda Forever. She's going to release her new song, Lift Me Up. It comes directly from the Black Panther soundtrack. And Marvel Studios hinted at the news of the song's release on its official Twitter on Tuesday. And many people are all for it. And it's set to release on Westbury Road, which is Rihanna's label, in partnership with Rock Nation, Def Jam Recordings, and Hollywood Records. It is her first release of new music since her album Anti back in 2016. Man, let me tell you, Rihanna is just doing it. She could drop out of the music world. She pulled a Maxwell, dropped off, did the fashion, did the business thing, and said, all right, I'm gonna go back in the studio. Let me Let me throw something on the track for the new Black Panther. Wow. And if you go on to Marvel's official Instagram, it's on the official Twitter account, they posted a 15-second clip of the 3D graphic of Black Panther Wakanda Forever before transitioning to a single R with the date October 28th, 2022. So it's going to drop officially tomorrow. It was accompanied by the caption of wide-eyed emoji with the Wakanda Forever hashtag, folks. Lift Me Up was conceived as a tribute to the late Chadwick Boseman, and the actor, of course, who played Black Panther, who passed away as a result of cancer in August of 2020. And so it is expected to be one of the highlights from the Wakanda Forever soundtrack. And so it was co-written by Rihanna, Ludwig Göransson, Tim's. Y'all know Tim's. Y'all, the ladies love some Tim's nowadays, man. He got a great sound. I love Tim's as well. And Black Panther director Ryan Coogler. Göransson, who is the Academy Award-winning film score for Wakanda Forever, produced the song, which was recorded in 5 countries. Of course, if it's Rihanna, she's gonna have to make it big. It's gonna have to sound big. Are y'all ready for this one? Are y'all ready for the Black Panther soundtrack? Now, look, I remember when Kendrick Lamar, he did the first soundtrack. Y'all remember this from the original film? I like some of the sounds. I like a couple of tracks, but it wasn't my favorite. I've heard soundtracks. I do love soundtracks, but in the top soundtracks, and y'all tell me very quickly, do you think that first Black Panther soundtrack was the one? I'm not a fan of it. I like a couple of songs. I love All the Stars with Kendrick and SZA. There was a couple of tracks on there, but the soundtrack as a whole project was not my favorite. I thought the soundtrack was going to sound much different than it did, but it is what it is. And so we'll see if this one really pops off. But Rihanna is back in the studio with this new song. Now, is this an indication she's going to drop a new album? Because many people have been asking that. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know if Riri's coming back. And what would you expect from Riri? She's got a baby. She's a mom now. She's a billionaire. She's taken over. She's taken over the world with lingerie and everything. So what do you expect from Riri? Is she still anti? Is she still anti? Is she anti? She probably can find a way. We will see. We will see. So that's what's posting. That's what's trending right now. And that's the report for Trends Posting doing the most. All right, folks, it is that time. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Make sure while you're online scrolling and trying to listen to Rihanna's new song that you scroll over to blackstarnetwork.com. Yes, make sure you check us out on our website. We want your support. We need your support, your financial support. Make sure you offer whatever you can. Any donation will help us in this day and time as we continue to build and expand the network, taking the network to the next level. So many great things are happening, and we want you to be a part of the movement for Black media. So go to blackstarnetwork.com and show your support. Also download the app on all of your devices free of charge. Sign up to be a part of the Bring the Phone fan club. Follow Black Star Network on Instagram and on Twitter. And also follow me, yours truly, Farajii Muhammad. You can find me on Instagram at The Real Farajii. You can find me on Twitter at Farajii. I just want to connect. I don't want to continue to build the community. Let's continue to build this platform that we call Black Star Network, that we call our own platform to have our conversation. So big shout out to everybody in the team for that. Also, I want to thank my production team. I want to thank Joel. I want to thank Ariel. Thank my man King Keenan. I want to thank our control room. I want to thank our very, very special guests that were able to join us. We want to thank Laura Albas. We want to thank Hassan. We want to thank Sineadu. Oh my gosh, this is just a phenomenal, phenomenal situation. Tomorrow, I got an announcement. I'm gonna drop it tomorrow. Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait, y'all. Got something for you. We're gonna kick it off. But I need your help. So tomorrow, I'm going to share with you what a new segment that we're going to be debuting. And so we're going to have this conversation tomorrow. I got to drop something for you. So for all of you that have been riding with us, Y'all would truly, truly appreciate it. And I know so many of you will have something to say about this announcement. So expect something big to be dropping tomorrow. We're going to have that. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned. Up next is RMU, Roland Martin Unfiltered, with the big guy himself, Brother Roland Martin. As always, tune into him, 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But on my end, I'll thank y'all so much for tuning in. And remember this, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will be back tomorrow. We have some more guests coming on tomorrow. Got my big announcement tomorrow. It's going to be a great way to end the week. So make sure y'all tune in tomorrow for another exciting day and another exciting edition of The Culture right here, exclusively here, only here on the Black Star Network. Have a great day, folks. Talk to you soon. Peace.